What's happening, everybody? I'm Adi, and this is Martial. We're Fidos International, and we are here on a Sunday, first show of the new year. Happy New Year to everyone, for all of those of you that are tuning in, for everybody in the red and white community. We wish you all nothing but the best in 2026. We wish the club and all sports under Olympiacos nothing but silverware. Let's make this museum expanded. Let's make it have to get expanded for all the new silverware that we're going to need for a successful 2026. And Olympiacos has already started on the right foot, winning the Super Cup against Offi, something that Martial and I are going to talk about very shortly. But before we do, of course, just a couple of quick housekeeping items. Guys, don't forget to like and subscribe. Those of you that are tuning in, every engagement helps us find more and more red and white fans. We are on our way. We are so close, less than 80 subscribers to getting to 8,000 on YouTube, a huge milestone for us. So thank you all for those of you that do follow us and help us continue to grow the red and white community. For those of you that want a little bit extra from us, you can check us out and support us on Patreon. You go to patreon.com/307 international. There's multiple tiers. You can join the WhatsApp group for just $1 a month. One of the most entertaining group chats you will ever be in. We get involved in literally everything. Plus, there's always somebody to talk to about Olympiacos any day, any time. Extra content. We actually have some stuff coming up. We are going to be recording a special interview literally in a couple of days. We're really excited about it. So we hope you guys enjoy it as well. And you can get all of that extra content and more at Patreon. So check it out. And thank you, of course, to our patrons who already do support us. We've got dozens of patrons already that are signed up. I believe, including the free patrons, we have over 100. So it's an incredible community. So thank you guys for joining us. And I hope, for those of you that don't already, that you consider joining us there. Now, Martial, before we talk about the football and the Super Cup situation, Tyreek Jones, basketball. Martial and I, unfortunately, are the last two people that should be talking to you guys about basketball. But this news was literally breaking right before we went live. Olympiacos BC reached an agreement with Partizan. Tyreek Jones, which was a player that has been a very controversial figure over in Partizan. I believe the fans were upset with him and they wanted him out. But anyway, he is now coming to Olympiacos. It's a huge pickup. I don't know much about basketball, but I do know that this is a very exciting pickup for Olympiacos as we look to try to advance up the EuroLeague standings, of course, and then try to do what we've been unable to do the last few seasons, which is actually win the EuroLeague. So very exciting addition to the basketball team. Now, let's talk about the Super Cup, Martial. Olympiacos won 3-0 yesterday. We beat Offi in getting our first piece of silverware of the season. And even though it's a new year, we saw a little bit of the same issues coming from Jose Luis Mendilibar and some of the other players. Very slow start. I think it took about 30 minutes before we really started to see anything resembling football. We didn't really see much in terms of opportunities until 30 minutes in, where finally, all of a sudden, it was, okay, now we're getting shots, a lot of them from distance, but we're starting to get looks on goal and put pressure on Offi. But before that, it was ugly. And I think, dare to say, Offi probably had more control of the football than we did for the first 30 minutes of the game. But not a good look. No changes also by Mendilibar at halftime. Didn't make any changes until beyond the 80th minute, Martial. And then, of course, more changes. And that was a change he was forced to make because of injury. Julian Biancon, who does not have a serious injury. Nikolakopoulos said on the radio today that he is fine. He was subbed out because of cramps. He will be available against Atromitos on the weekend. So fortunately, no injuries there. But that injury situation was the first change Mendilibar made. And then he makes change into the extra time, the period of extra time. And we eventually go to win 3-0. Martial, before we talk about the match, I should say, some of the players and our issues with maybe Mendilibar, tell me your thoughts on the match on a whole.
It was such a strange game because first of all the date of the game is so weird because I knew we were due to play the Super Cup, but like I just realized 2 days ago that it would be on Saturday. Like, I mean, it was super early. Uh, kind of a tough game because even if Ofi is having a disaster of a season, it's always difficult to go there and grab a win. But that being said, honestly, uh, I think I went into the upside down, like the other world in which I don't believe anymore in most of the key players we do have in the current team. And I enjoyed the extra time because uh, we kind of won the game easily in starting from that point. But a part of that, I have major concern about the second part of the season because what I've seen from some players, to name them being Rodinei, Podense, uh, Taremi, Yaremchuk, all of those players. Yaremchuk might be a little bit too harsh, but Taremi, Podense, and Rodinei that are due to have kind of a big role in the team. I don't see where it's going. I don't see where it's going because it's the same recipe, the same lineup. Finally, Danny Garcia isn't part of the picture anymore. But we will have to win key games with those players, and I don't see how it will be possible when you have two wingers that can't do anything when it comes to the good pass, the good shot at the right moment. You have what who is supposed to be the second striker that is unable to connect with his teammates. It was very concerning. Like, to me, it was a very concerning day, and the fact that we won 3-0 is almost symbolical. It's symbolical because I don't think it's sustainable, and I've tried to think about it for the whole day, like trying to think about what I was going to say on the podcast. But when just you just look forward and I don't see Mendilibar changing anything. The first week of January is almost done, and we don't have any hint for a player coming. We have major needs, and I don't think we're doing this thing right. But let's see.
Well, there's a question that's from our good friend Lakis Gavalas here asking about signings before the 29th of January. And the unfortunate thing is, without going on too large of a tangent while we're talking about the game, our transfer policy is going to be dictated by two things. One, who's going to leave? Remember, Mendilibar and what we're hearing from our sources is that Mendilibar does not want any new signings, not until people leave. I mean, he doesn't want any signings, period, but he doesn't want anybody, not until anyone leaves, at least, which makes things very difficult. So the wingers everybody wants, not coming unless somebody moves on, probably Yusuf Yazici. The fullback that everybody wants, not leaving until we find a team for Bruno and Yamaitsi. So don't expect any movement until there's more outgoing. Remy Cabela was only the first that needed to go. Ruben Vezo has to go as well. Not that he's counted on for anything, but pieces have to move. Mendilibar wants a 23-man roster. That's the first thing. Second thing, Champions League will dictate probably what else we do with our transfers. If we do not beat Leverkusen, or at least let's say this, if we don't at least draw Leverkusen and have a chance at knockouts, I guarantee you we will not be making crazy moves. If we have a chance, if we beat Leverkusen, you will probably see things moving much faster and you will probably see a lot more chatter. But right now, outside of maybe some potentials like buys that will be for the future, don't expect big money to be spent unless we remain in Champions League. That's the truth. Those are the two things. Those are the two considerations which will dictate our transfer policy. So the transfers for sure will be late unless we move other players earlier than anticipated. I'm not expecting anything to happen until after the middle of January at the earliest. And that's the truth, guys. That's uh that's that's just going to be how it is. And we'll talk more about the transfers later. But moving back to the game with respect to what we're talking about and the transfers that are needed, we saw the same thing in the first 30 minutes. And unfortunately, in many respects, it's not good enough. We beat Ofi not because Mendilibar is a genius. We beat Ofi because we have better players and better depth that we can go further into a game with. And that's the truth. Now, while I'm not going to be upset that we won a title, of course, a Super Cup, even a piece of silverware, the same things us that we see continuing to be done by Mendilibar are concerning. For me, even though it's the Super Cup, I do not care. It is a piece of silverware. You take it seriously. There was no reason for him to wait so long to make a change. I'm sorry. You know, it's not like Ofi was not threatening us at all in that game. They had a couple of very dangerous counters. Kostas Cholakis had to come into action and make some pretty big saves in this game today. It wasn't all us in this Super Cup. Ofi needs to be taken seriously. We needed to make changes earlier, and he didn't do it. We won this game because we had better players and better depth to take us through to extra time. That's why we won this game.
No, that's right. But I the thing that frustrates me, I think the word is frustration, because we keep seeing the same players playing over and over, and you see Rodinei that basically brings nothing when he starts. I know Costinha hasn't been great every time he played, because he played quite a lot this season because Rodinei was injured at some point, and yes, he struggled to a certain point, but it's too many question marks. Too many question marks. We don't have any proper analysis on the team. You, I mean, it's on those time that you expect from the press or for the people that follow the clubs to at least ask question. To ask question, what does it bring to the team to start Rodinei over and over? What does it bring to the team to have Podense being an absolute starter and indirectly blocking Strefezza to have back-to-back games to show that Azer is good enough to play for Olympiacos, or isn't good enough to stay, and then you have January to offload the guy. You have Gelson that is playing. I don't mind Gelson because he's creating situation. The biggest issue of Gelson is not converting anything, because when it
Right.
comes to dribble, runs, differences, he's the only one that is able to do back-to-back differences against at least smaller teams, and we saw that in the Champions League he was able to score. But when you are that ineffective, you just can't remain a starter in every club, but especially in Olympiacos. And we end up going to January with like more questions than anything else for a club that went back to Champions League 5 years after 5 years. I don't know. And we still have major questions after that game. And
Uh,
when is the last time like Mendilibar has been asked to explain his choices? I know he's not the guy that explain a lot, maybe unless he's questioned in Champions League, for example, by foreign medias. But apart of that, we have the pretty much the same lineup every week, and it's basically that if it's normal.
Well, there's a couple of things that at this point, we accept as Olympiacos fans, right? We accept that the football is not pretty. We've accepted that for 2.5 years. That's just how it is. It's very direct. We know it relies a lot more on crosses. So we don't expect anymore to play champagne football because it's just not part of what we do. It's not part of what Mendilibar's philosophy is. And, we understand that it's press first, everything else comes later. So these are just things, unfortunately, we as a fan base have to accept. And if we can't figure out how to accept that, we're going to be extremely miserable. The other part of that is if we're talking about certain players like Gelson and Rodinei, whose end product this year has been the worst I've seen since they've been here. The there's good and bad that comes with them, right? You already brought up before the end product is terrible. What Rodinei and Gelson do that is very valuable and which draws attention. It's the reason in Greece media was saying Gelson was one of our best players, is that they transition the ball forward. They're very good about getting forward, stretching, using space. Their problem is entirely end product. Rodinei caused an international incident yesterday. That free kick he took that he launched over the kick landed in Turkey in Bodrum and caused an international incident. They thought it was a bomb. It's ridiculous. This guy, like, he kills birds every game. If there's one lesson we need to take at this point, and I love Rodinei, I love what he's done for this club, but we cannot let this guy take free kicks anymore. It's just not possible. You see when Jesus Muzakitis at 19 years old gets the ball, whether it's a free kick or whether he's delivering the ball from the outside into the box in open play, it is always close to somebody. It is close. The free kicks he took, not far off from the goal or the goalpost. It was close. Rodinei, I don't believe anymore that he actually aims. I don't believe that he does when he takes kicks. I think he just kicks it. Now, maybe it could be the case that in practice, Rodinei is much more accurate than he is in the games. All I know is that in the games, he's not accurate at all and he hardly hits his target. We could say that that's maybe a part of how stagnant we are in the box. Maybe we should be running on the things more. I don't know. But in that Offie game, I can only remember one delivery where Rodinei actually got it onto somebody very close, and that was when he crossed the ball over to that left side. And I want to say, was it Taremi that couldn't get onto it? I can't remember who was over there. I think it was Taremi who couldn't get over there to get to the ball, but it was actually a decent cross near the end of the game. So that's the situation there. They just have awful end product. And while Rodinei's maybe better 1v1 and getting forward, I agree with you. We should be seeing more of Costinha. Costinha can do all the work needed. He's very athletic. He can get forward and backward, but his cross is way better. I don't understand why we couldn't see Costinha earlier. When Rodinei starts messing up and he's not hitting the broadside of a barn, you got to take him out. I don't care if he's our highest paid player in the defensive line. I don't. You have to sub these guys out. Also, forgetting about how we think the guys played, it's not good to run these guys into the ground like this. We have another game in a week, and you're going to run. How old is Rodinei now? 34? You're going to run a 34-year-old over 100 minutes? Are you serious? It's ridiculous.
The thing is, what frustrates me the most is that we are not in the situation under Michel or under I don't know Corberan, in which you have 45 players in the squad and you have tons of mediocre player sticking in the club. We're in a situation in which you have on the bench Costinha, you have on the bench. I mean, we talked a lot about Darni Garcia, and we've seen that with Heze and Mouvakitis, the midfield is way better, but the competition in midfield has worked because I think Danny Garcia, for me, was used at some point as to push Mouvakitis to be better, and we've been seeing over the past 4 or 5 weeks that Mouvakitis has been better and better. And you mentioned that earlier, but you entirely right. Mouvakitis is by far the most creative player in the team. But the thing is, when you look at the bench, you have easy solutions to push a little bit more competition. Uh, just like Biancon is doing with Retros and Kalogeropoulos, because injuries are keeping those players focused. Because Biancon was due to play, Noah is injured, maybe Kalogeropoulos will play. You have Retros, Pirola is injured, but the thing is, on specific position, you don't see much competition. You have Rodinei, that is the absolute starter. You have Ortega, that is the absolute starter. And it's right, because Ortega is way better than Bruno. But we can't expect as fans, and I think Mendilibar probably knows that, you can't expect players like Bruno and stuff to be able to be better than the starters, because to be better than Mendy's starters, you would need to be uh, Joao Cancelo, maybe, that kind of top players from day one. And it's difficult I think what is broken in the team is the ability to come, to play, to be good, and to be given 2, 3 games to have confidence and rhythm. Like even Strefezza, I remember the episode we did after the Real Madrid game. We were saying like maybe Strefezza had his better game since he joined Olympiacos, and uh, we'll see him playing more and more. And we did see him playing more and more, but it was very short. And we went back to Podense and Gelson. And I think in Atromitos, we'll have Podense and Gelson because what's the point of Medibar changing players? For me, the Super Cup, a part of the trophy we won, was kind of a new message from Medibar saying that he only trusts 13, 14 players when it comes to be starters. And I know we're going to talk about it later, but on Yazici, I kind of changed my mind because I do want to see Yazici being used more. But that being said, we also need to understand and to value the fact that every coach will have what is called like super sub, uh, a guy for smaller games that will play only the smaller games, even if for a limited amount of time. And as long as Yazici delivers, I think it kind of justifies Mendilibar. And I know it's difficult for the fans to understand that, but if Yazici keeps doing that until the very end of the season, even with a very limited playing time, I mean, it would have brought many points, many wins, and it's valuable. You don't have to be an absolute starter to be valuable for the team. We want to see more of Yazici, but what we are saying of Yazici is not better, but I think we should be valuing more of that. And I think Mendilibar loves Yazici. Like it would be not sad, but I don't think he wants Yazici to leave the club. It would be probably the opposite of that if I had to bet.
I think so. I see what you're saying regarding Yazici and how he's used, and in a way, it kind of vindicates him because he continues to use him and he continues to have success. But the other part of me says, well, okay, I could see that if he were used more consistently. And the thing that the thing that makes me disagree with that in part is that, or in that I don't think Mendilibar sees it this way, is simply because that Mendilibar does not use him in matches consistently. Usually it's in like cup matches, etc., or lower level league matches. But then we have matches like against Bafos. We have matches like against Kifisia. We have matches like against Aris, which are in, and even this Ofi match up until extra time, where the game is screaming for a player like Yazici. It's screaming for him because Ofi's starting to sit back. They're putting numbers behind the box, and we've seen when Yazici is given space and time and they're going to sit back and let him do what he wants with the ball, he can take shots from distance, he can deliver beautiful passes, he can interplay with almost anybody on this team. This is a guy that will elevate the people around him, and this is a guy that will make things happen. And when you are against that deep block, which unfortunately right now we don't have enough players that are creative enough to be able to do something more than cross into the penalty area to get out of these situations and to draw defenders away. You need a guy like that because it does two things. One, even if Yazici is not scoring against the low block, he's dangerous enough to where the defenders will have to commit. Players will have to come off the line, out of the box to get to him because they know, my God, if I let him sit there and take shots, he's going to score. And just him being able to draw a defender or two away opens up space for others to get. That's how you beat the low block. It's the only way you can do it. Otherwise, you're going to be firing against 11 people inside of the penalty area, and good luck. Even the best of teams struggle with that. So, if we hadn't had so many of these situations and so many of these issues where we were dropping points and Yazici's rotting on the bench, I would be in agreement. But because of that, it makes me disagree because if he had continued to use them in all situations consistently like this, I'd say yes. This is how he's used it. Yazici's comfortable with the role. Fine. Unfortunately, that hasn't been the case. And the case for me is clear. He doesn't rate Yazici. And I know some people disagree about whether or not we need him. I think the majority agree we do need him. But great players like this, you have to find a way to use them. Even Pedro Martins, who didn't like Cosas Fortunis and they had their issues, still found a way to make him useful as a super sub. And Mendilibar has to be much better about that. At the very least, Yazici deserves more time. At the very least, we can say that. He deserves to play more. He's been effective in the last 7 matches, Martial. He has 6 goal contributions. I think that's right. The last 7 or the last 6? He has 6 goal. That's amazing. Oh, no, sorry. The last 4 matches, he has 6 goal contributions. And I get there's people on social media that tell me he's only playing cup get matches or matches against the lower table teams. Is that Yazici's fault? Is that his fault that he's only being put in those situations given 15, 20, 30 minutes here? No, it's not. His job is to do the job when he plays, which he does. The rest is on Mendilibar. And look, guys, I love Mendilibar to death. I know I'm going to get people that are going to come after me and get upset with me that I'm talking bad about Mendilibar here, but this is the truth. The terrible football you see, it's Mendilibar's design. We're used to it, but it's him. Don't blame the club for the football. It's Mendilibar. We have great players. We have better players than most of Greece. We can talk about the moves that are being made by Ike, like bringing in Vargas from Ferencvaros, but that's a different story. But at the very least, you have a player like that who can change and help you against the low block. No one's saying he needs to do a system change. None of us are asking for that. But there are better ways to get use out of these players. Good luck in the window trying to find that super creative player that also has the stamina that Mendilibar needs to run the system, that also can press like that. There's a reason why it seems like it's so hard for us to find a winger in this system because it's difficult. It's very difficult. And you're not going to get the whole package. We don't have the budget for that. This is the reality. So you either figure out how to use Yazici, you figure out how to play him more, especially against the low blocks in Greece, or you just get rid of him. And then we bring in another player. But go ahead and get rid of him, guys, and then see what happens. I don't want to hear the complaints that Mendilibar doesn't have the pieces he needs when he's right now he's the one that's creating his own bed.
But the thing is, I wanted to say that before you talked about Yazici, but we also need to realize that most of the players in the team would rather prefer to play with guys like Yazici in the team. And the example I would like to use is when Cabela was announced by Nantes, the League One account on Instagram published a video of Cabela's highlights in the French league. And I've seen like Biancon, Chiquinho, and other players like interacting with it, like sharing the videos showing like basically Cabela's abilities. And we need to realize that those players there would rather play with quality around, even if it's Yazici, Cabela player that has said to be unfit for Mendy's plans. And we're getting to a point in which we have an issue with creativity, and we will need from Mendilibar to find a way from that creativity to express itself. And it's not about Yazici specifically as a player. Like we've had better players than Yazici. I think we can find more suitable player than Yazici. But not being able to use what do you have in the squad is something that frustrates me a lot because uh, you would see coaches like Luchescu, for example, being able to use 120% of shitty players I don't know how many. If you recall the players he led to titles, most of them were 3 times worse than Yazici or Cabela, for example. And I mean, the fact that Cabela signed, left in January, scored in his first game in Marseille away, and basically no one cares. No one analyzes what went wrong with such players in the club, because we will need to get to a point in which it has to be acceptable to criticize Mendy Debar, to ask Mendy Debar in pressers Why did you cut such players? Why why are the limitation of a better use of Yazici as a starter? What is blocking you from using Yazici? And maybe he has good reasons to do so, but it will need to be asked. It will be to need discussed, and because we are getting to the point in which it's getting conflictual over Mendilibar, that is undoubtedly the best coach Olympiacos has seen. But anyone is criticable. Like I don't know, because that game against Olfi for me was also a turning point, if I can say that, because if you go to social, you see huge Mendy fans starting to question the football we play. Uh, you see huge Mendy fans question the no subs, question Yazici, even the guy that were against Yazici at the very beginning. Because if you have a if you go back in time to the summer, we pretty much all agree about Yazici not being ready to play under Mendilibar. But no reingenuity, and we are lacking creativity. We have a guy able to score or assist off the bench anytime he's due to play. So we're getting to a point that we will need to question basically everything, because otherwise we've seen AEK, PAOK, Panathinaikos signing good players. I don't think they are signing better players than Olympiacos, but they do sign good players. And the league is made in a way that you will have to play back-to-back big games at the end. So you will need ready players, you will need creativity, you will need experience, you will need a mix of all of that. And I'm getting worried about the Yazici is just another example. It's not possible in January to have both Kabila and Yazici leave the club, leave Olympiacos without offering anything, because they are barely given any playing time.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
if it
this
was
was
De La Fuente, since the first training, you could see the guy wasn't due to play for Olympiacos ever in his life. Like same for Wijo, even Bowler, and I know Bowler had some good cameos sometimes in Europe, for example. But those guys weren't good enough to play for Olympiacos. At the very first moment they stepped a foot in ready, it was already over for them. But we're talking with Yazici, and you made a parallel with Fortunis, and I think maybe the only difference is that Fortunis was more than a player. Like he was a club legend, a great player, uh, a guy that has two ACL with Olympiacos. He renewed, he almost left, he went back, and there is no pressure from above under Mendilibar to use Yazici, and I'm afraid that it's gonna. I don't. I can't say if Yazici is gonna leave, but it's gonna be super frustrating because because it's the Greek league at the end of it. It's the Greek league.
right.
No
I,
one can say Yazici can't play in the Greek league. What kind of nonsense is that?
you know, regarding the Fortunis parallel that you made, I believe personally, Fortunis actually adapted and stuck to the press by the end of that conference league season. When Medlibar came, he did what was asked. Had Fortunis not adapted, and maybe had Olympiacos not won the conference league that season, I wonder, I really wonder if he would have been treated like Yusuf Yazici right now, because that's Yusuf Yazici and Kostas Fortunis are the same type of player. We have all these people calling for Kostas Fortunis to come back. You look at the physical state he's in, and he is not even close to what he was in that conference league season under Mendilibar when he was running all over the place. I The only reason Fortunis would be faring better and seeing more minutes than Yazici right now is because he's built a social capital with Mendilibar from that win. That would be the only reason. But for the people that have been saying that Fortunis needs to come back, it's probably the worst decision to do under Jose Luis Mendilibar. That's as far as the Fortunis parallel is concerned. And this issue with Mendilibar and him being stuck not playing certain players, it's not like it's just this position. I know that the last month or last few weeks, we've been talking about We've been talking about Yazici more, right? But let's not forget, in the first couple months of the season, we were having this discussion about Muzakitis. We were having the discussion about Muzakitis because Danny Garcia was playing over and over and over again, and we couldn't see Muzakitis play. The unfortunate thing is, and I went back to a couple of the discussions we had last season around this time and before with Mendeleïbot. It was the same discussion, Martial. It was the same discussion, the same frustration with baby steps. Okay, he finally figured the center backs out. He finally figured out the midfield. He finally figured this out, but it's step by step by step by step with Mendeleïbot. You know, that's the unfortunate thing. And he just doesn't seem to learn the lessons from the past. And we have mainly the same players that we did last season and a lot of the same players that we had during the conference league run. And yet we have to deal with this over and over and over again. The unfortunate fact is, the unfortunate reality that we have to deal with here is that no matter what Yazici does, Mendeleïbot is stubborn. There's no board pressure that's going to make him play him more. And I wouldn't want the board right now to put pressure on him to play players. We have never supported that on this show since we started. The only time I would ever want to see our board apply pressure to Mendeleïbot is to play the youngsters. And in this case, a kid like Pneumonides. I brought this up in multiple shows ever since, especially Coach Rubio has been using him differently in the B team. We don't have another player like Chiquinho that can fulfill the press role behind the striker. Mehdi Taremi does it for Yaremchuk, and it's just not the same. But Pneumonides is doing really well like that. And you don't have another kid that can, or person that can run all day, that can do that. Maybe he doesn't have the technical ability of Chiquinho, but that is a player. If the board was going to put pressure on Mendy for something, it should be that. It should be getting Stavros Pneumonides on the first team to support Chiquinho. There's a lot of things we have to be careful for in this squad right now, in this roster, the way we play, the way that we press. And the big thing is, what is life for Olympiacos like after Chiquinho is gone? Chiquinho won't be here forever. And we take for granted so much of what he does in that 10 role. Mendeleïbot took a number 8. This guy is a traditional box-to-box midfielder, a deeper lying midfielder, and transitioned him into a number 10 for the pressing role. Diogo Nascimento has the stamina to play box to box and to press, but he doesn't do it as effectively as Chiquinho. We should be starting from now to find a serious alternate to Chiquinho. And in-house, the closest thing that we have, if we're not going to use Diogo Nascimento more consistently, is to use Pneumonides, who's doing it really well. These are the things that I would rather the club put pressure on Mendy for than just, oh, play this player, because I don't like the precedent that sets. But for our homegrown talent, absolutely, I would support the pressure to play some of those kids. And that would be one thing that I say the club has to start getting more involved in. And I acknowledge the fact that Pneumonides is not Kostulas or Muzakitis. I acknowledge that.
Just to add something on Yazici, because I would be okay if Yazici was sidelined because the club has chose a new path for players with like 123 players, scouted transfers of young players that are like faster, more mobile and stuff. But you do look at the transfers, and you do have like Taremi coming in, and I think we can all agree on the fact that Taremi, when you see Taremi playing, you just wonder what Taremi has that suits Mendeleïbot playing style more than Yazici. A part of the fact that he probably tracks back a little bit more, or he probably runs more. I don't know, but it's not really visible to see what Yazici has, and not what Taremi has that Yazici hasn't. So the club can't justify that the coach doesn't use either Kabela or Yazici when you do sign players like Taremi, for example. It's either you pick a way of doing things and you use players like Nascimento, Scipioni, or Pneumonides, Mancha, for example, but you can't have Danny Garcia as a starter with Taremi and have a coach that cut basically Yazici and Kabela from the Champions League list. He needs he needs to the club in general needs to pick one way of doing things. And if Marinakis believes that scouted transfers is the way to success, so be it. But you need to do it 100%. You need to not sign Kabela at first. You need to say to Yazici, okay, you were injured for the last season, but it's time for you to find a new club. Mendilibar doesn't count on you to be a starter, and that's it. And you don't sign Taremi, and you don't renew Danny Garcia, but you can't have it all. You can't have it all. And we're getting in the situation in which it's difficult to understand what's the plan and even what's the plan, but for the coach too. What is Mendy's plan right now? What is Mendy, if he's happy with the squad and he doesn't want any new players unless someone leaves? Like we are nearing the catastrophe. I don't know the word in English, but we're nearing the accident.
Catastrophe.
Yeah,
Catastrophe. Yeah. It's the I think so. Let's put it this way: we know what Mendilibar is going to do, and it's going to be the same thing he's been doing. He does not change. We know that. I'll reiterate the same conspiracy theory I had in the previous show when I was talking to Costas Lianos, and my conspiracy theory is that Danny Garcia or Mendilibar is probably right now and probably has been since getting his renewal. He probably wants Danny Garcia renewed. That would not surprise me in any way, shape, or form. So my conspiracy theory is the club will not announce anything regarding Danny Garcia unless we end up bringing back somebody like Cosas Fortunis. If you start seeing smoke about something crazy like that, or if you start seeing I am there is just something there that is telling me that Mendilibar is going to try to force through a renewal for a guy like Danny Garcia. And this is just how he is. I mean, he's comfortable with the players that he's comfortable with, and that isn't going to change. The club, the club either has two choices, which I think it's going to go for the second choice. And the first choice is you try to force a couple of players that the manager doesn't like and make sure he uses it to balance for what he doesn't want. They've tried that, it seems. I believe they did that with the players that we saw previously, like Yazici, Sergio Oliveira, Marcelo, Willian, or sorry, not Marcelo. My God, I'm predating myself. But sorry, Willian, Sergio Oliveira, Yazici, now Remy Cabela. I believe that is what they tried to do in the past. And of course, Mendilibar, he's just not going to play who he doesn't want to play. He doesn't care. Or you do the second thing, which is suck it up and then try your best to figure out how you can get players that play to what Mendilibar wants. And that seems to be how they've approached most of these signings. Because you look at Gabriel Strafetza, and what is it that's very clear that he can do? Run all day. The guy can run. He has plenty of stamina to do that. He's also leading the front line in interceptions. So he clearly can press. We know that he has the work rate and the ability to do the work that Mendilibar wants. So it's up to the club then to try to find the most technical players it can that can also keep up with that work rate, what Mendilibar expects on the field. And I think the club's been trying to go for number two and even give Mendilibar what he wants as far as players. Last year he wanted Danny Garcia. They brought in Danny Garcia. This year he wanted Brian Hill. The club tried to get him, but Brian Hill didn't want to come to Greece. So I don't I don't know what the happy median is with Mendilibar, but it's very clear that you cannot force a player onto him. You can't. He doesn't allow it. Look at Gabela, look at Yazici. You cannot force a player on him.
the club will need to make a choice at some point because it's okay if Mendilibar says, okay, I would like to see this player coming, this one, because I know those guys, I know they have the quality to play for, or at least I saying that they do have the quality to play for Olympiacos. But I don't understand why Marinakis, that has been an owner that always forced players on every coach he had, even Martins, even the most successful coaches. He basically gave 100% of his confidence to Mendilibar, which makes sense because Mendilibar won the Conference League and he won the league and the cup. But you need to balance it a little bit more. And if you don't bring the quality Mendilibar is asking for, you need to do just better transfers. You need to, I don't know, because we are kind of in a in between situation that is very frustrating because if, for example, the club decides to I don't know to cut Strefezza in January, I almost know that we're going to see someone equally as good coming, like meaning someone that doesn't solve the problem. Eh, We need to find. I think pretty much everyone is saying the same thing, but we need to find uh, signings like Guillerme, signings like proper player from 28 years old, at least two of them in January, two of them to bring confidence and stability to the team, because otherwise it's going to be a very difficult situation. And that being said, you said it earlier, Mendilibar doesn't want new player unless some of them leave. So the following sentence is very simple. We need players to leave the club in January and not Yazici only. We need, like, when I saw the game against Olfi, for me, the cycle is getting closer to the end than anything else. And maybe it's time for one or two players leaving. And I know it's not very popular to ask for players to leave in January, but sometimes you don't have any other choices than that. And if you do remember the January before the conference league, look what Ken January can do to a team. We were struggling. We still struggle after January, but we with way more quality. Like the task was easier for Mendilibar to fix the team with the quality he had at the club at the time, compared to other coaches before. Look at what just Carmo did to the defense. Carmo,
Right.
Chiquinho, and Horta, and those are not insane players on paper. It's like basically signing the equivalent of Varga for Ike, that kind of player, 28 to 30 years old, with good resume, playing in Europe, of good seasons, ready from day one. Maybe this is what we need. This is what we need, like to show to some players they won't be absolute starters until the end, and it has to come from Mendilibar. It's Mendilibar's job to say, okay, because how many times he said, I was disappointed with what I saw in the game. Like I remember seeing it on the press like 10 times. So why do you keep the same lineup? Why do you keep the same lineup if you don't go public saying, either I don't really appreciate those characteristics in this guy, he can't say that publicly, or at least you can say he didn't train well during the week, and I reward the player that trained the best during the week. It would make sense, but he needs to justify himself. Because uh, I don't know, because we need to project ourselves to next season. We need signings not only for 6 months. We don't need new Bruno, good for 6 months and then not good enough to play the Champions League. That's what I'm saying. We're in an in-between situation. We need to be very careful in January if we do transfers.
I think as much I don't think we need as many transfers personally. Like, I know you brought up midfield, right? But I don't see that the club would find a need to sign 28 to 30-year-old player if we don't make the knockouts. Because then at that point, what's the point? I would rather have the younger potential player like the Diogo Nascimento that I know might do something more for me with a preseason or next summer. That would be my preference. And I don't see the point if we're not going to play knockout football, get the extra money, I don't see the point in spending the money. I would prefer to get better options for us to lock up the league. I think that when it comes to what the club needs to do, regardless of whether we make Champions League or not. And we know that we need to move on some players, but I think regardless of whether we need Champions League or we make the knockouts or not in Champions League, we need for sure a winger. I feel like Yazici's gone, and at this point, you know what? It is what it is. And if Yazici goes, we have to bring in another winger. So we need to bring in a fast left-footed winger. That's what Mendilibar wanted over the summer, and we never got it. So I know Andino was talked about. He's an inverted left winger, so I don't know if that counts, but we need a fast inverted, or we need a fast left-footed left winger. That's what Mendilibar wanted, first of all. Midfield, I think we're okay, unless we want to move Danny Garcia on. No complaints. I'm happy to bring another player in if we move Danny Garcia on. I doubt we sell Santiago Eze unless he gets sold, which I don't think will happen. But I think we have enough depth in the midfield that I'm not really super concerned about bringing another midfielder in. What I care more about is fullback. I care about replacing Bruno because we've seen what great fullbacks do for us. Quality fullbacks, or fullbacks that are playing well at least, do more for your attack. Francisco Ortega is having the best season of his career at Olympiacos. And we've seen that we've done so much more on the left side because of that, because he's been playing better and he's not getting destroyed on the left side either. The right side's been a bigger problem, in my opinion, than the left side this season, which is like polar opposite than what we saw last season. In the midfield, I think right now we've got going on our starting duo with Santiago Eze and Jesus Muzakitis. It's great. Then we have different looks. We have Lorenzo Scipioni, who's visibly maturing as the season wears on. I think that he will be more valuable, maybe if not the rest of the season, for sure next season. Diogo Nascimento offers us something a little bit different. He can also play in that 10 role too to replace Chiquinho for the moment. And then don't forget, we have Liatsikuras in the academy who's been doing well and having impact in the B team and in the U19s. So you have a great players. Really, the one that you might miss is who's for sure leaving is Muzakitis. If you watch the game against Offi and you saw how seamlessly and effortlessly he was distributing the ball, then you understand. I mean, this kid at 19 years old, he's going to be gone. So that would be more the worry I have in the summer is how you replace him. But right now, you have Jose Muzakitis and you have different looks. You have plenty of options in the midfield, not even including Liatsikoras that you can look to. For me, the big problems, if you want to make transfers, regardless of whether we're in Champions League or not, we need a winger, especially if Yazici goes, and we need to replace Bruno Nyamaichi for a better left fullback. At that point, I don't think it's about transfers. I think it's about Mendilibar's man management. You can only bring in so many players, Martial, if Mendilibar is not going to use them. And that, for me, is the real problem. You brought up earlier in the show how upset people have been getting about Mendilibar. I just looked at the post we made about Yazici yesterday. Over 150 comments, 90% of them pissed off with Mendilibar. We've never seen that before. It's been happening for weeks. The fan base is starting to get old. They're starting to get irritated. They're starting to get annoyed and impatient with the use of resources. Because regardless of what you say, whether or not we should have better players here and there, we have the best squad in Greece, even with getting Vargas. Most of this is on player choice by Mendilibar. And I don't care what transfers we make, unless Mendilibar is going to actually use them. It's nothing. It's nothing.
I think it's an unsolvable situation. And the thing is, everyone that watches Olympiacos probably knows to a certain point that Mendilibar will never change. And it's a gradual acceptation of that fact that is starting to be higher in the fan base. But I see some people, and it's not really a critic, because the fact that Mendilibar doesn't change is not necessarily a reason that we won't win the league, but we will have the same frustration over and over. And if nothing happens in January, uh, the team will remain the same. Like, we will have the same lineup over and over, but 2 or 3 changes due to injuries or suspensions. But The question is bigger than Yazici or any transfers. If you did watch the game against Elfi, you just realize that it's the same game than Addis away, than Kifisha at home. It's a cycle, and I'm getting to the point in which you do realize that very few people believe in this team being able to improve. And that is the concern because the quality for me is enough to win the league without improving because you do have the players for that. But I was expecting much more than that. I mean, it's I'm not even worried about losing the league. I'm more worried about we are not improving as much as we should because the potential is way better than that. And you have the academy, you have the Champions League, uh, you have a name to attract good players, even if you have a limited budget. We shouldn't be discussing of Yazici, in my opinion. I mean, with all due respect to Yazici, he should be benched because we should be having a top winger, if not two. And the debate should be if is Yazici good enough to start over a prolific winger with like 5 goals, 7 assists in the league. But we don't have that. We don't even have that. We have Gelson that is super frustrating, and we have Pedense that is for me entirely unfit for football, for good level of football. I mean, not it, I think he can't even be decisive if he was playing in Saudi Arabia. It's unsustainable from whole parts. I mean, it was unsustainable with Danny Garcia for almost 3 months to start the season, and it still was unsustainable when he started him in Saloniki, leading to that red card. So every topic we discuss comes back to the very point of it's up to Mendilibar to decide what he wants to do with the season. And I
Yes,
think
and
the
to
club is entirely uh, um, I'm trying to find the word, but the club can't do anything to block that because the club has given rightly Mendilibar the power, the absolute power. And now the question is where all of that will lead Olympiacos. I don't have the answer. I have concerns. I do also believe in Mendilibar, but we were due to be better than that. We were due to be. I'm truly disappointed because uh, I mean you have Andre Luis playing with Clayton in Rio Ave being the best pair. Like it's almost Valbuena and El Arabi, but younger, but Brazilian. So it means that every one of them costs 15 million if they do have good games, and we're wasting that. We're wasting that for an old recipe that is getting to the end, and I'm very frustrated because we should be discussing about way more interesting topics, in my opinion. It's not a critic, but we should be discussing about. Oh, we do have a winger that is coming 22 years old from I don't know a lower division abroad, and the guy would just be a scouted profile that is made for better leagues in the future. Instead of that, we're discussing about Pedense, Gelson, uh, even Yazici. With all due respect to Yazici, that is a fantastic player. What offers Yazici can expect to have if he does leave Olympiacos?
game
Kabila,
experience.
I just want to address something on Kabila because I think Kabila has been entirely misjudged. The thing Kabila loves football. He's fit. He's fit. He wants to play football, and he left in December, at the end of December, to be ready for Nantes' first game in January. The guy loves football, and uh, the thing I wanted to say is we should be using more of that. We should be using more of that because there are players that want to play in this club, and we need to. I'm so frustrating. I'm so frustrated because Kabela are the kind of guys that trains every day, that loves to play. They want to play every game, and we kind of admitted the guy was finished and he was almost a new Marcelo. and he's fitter than non-player that have been playing from the past 6 months. I think it was a mistake, but that's another
Well,
topic.
uh, I agree with you. It's a mistake, but should the club have brought in a player that clearly was not a Mendeleev player? We knew that the day he signed. And while I agree with you, I think he would have been useful, especially in the European list. I agree that he definitely had something to offer us, but as a club, we saw it. I know they saw it that this guy was not a player that Mendeleev that adhered to the profiles he likes and to the tactics he wanted. So at that point, whose fault is it? Is it should the club have even brought him in as much as they wanted him? They wanted the player for so long. They've been monitoring the player for years. Should you have brought him in knowing that he's not a player Mendeleev uses? You know what I mean? If we have a couple players that are like that, but because they built a social capital with Mendeleev, they use it or he uses them. But maybe part of the mistake is that the club shouldn't have even brought him in, knowing that he's not what Mendeleev wants. There was a good point here by Arispan that we've talked about in the past. We talk about this a lot. Adispan says, I repeat that you either buy into Mendiball, you get the young guys up front to lead the press, or you find someone else to accommodate Podence, Daremi, and Yazici in the squad. And he's absolutely right.
Yes.
We've brought this up many times. We've brought this up so many times with respect to
No, but
Mendeleev and his players.
it's what I was saying before, because the club needs to pick one side, and the side has to be Mendy's side because he's the most successful coach this club has ever seen. And I was in the category of fans that was pissed when I was seeing the rumors with Vicente, for example, because it was too expensive in my opinion. But when you do see the player, you just realize that maybe it makes more sense to sign the guy and takes the risk to sign Vicente for 7 or 8 million
Or
in
10.
this.
They wouldn't go down from 10 million.
Yeah, maybe yeah. No, 10 is too expensive. But
They're way too
i-
expensive.
if you can sign a player from the Spanish league that isn't too old and wants to and Mendilibar wants him, maybe it's smarter to go for that guy rather than uh, mm, I don't know to sign Kabbalah to keep Yazici to renew some players. And I think the club in general is trying to is we went into the scouting way to bring new players, and it kind of works, but I don't know. Something is off. Something needs to be fixed, and it's not only with players, but this is why I'm calling from Kovacevic to go public and give interviews. I mean, if people in this chat follow another club, just ask yourself, is it normal that the sports director doesn't talk at all in the press, like to explain the plan, to explain what he likes from Strafezza, for example, what it doesn't like from some players, what it means to play for Olympiacos? We need the sports director to do interviews, to be questioned by journalists, to give answers, even if it's communication. And because, for example, yeah, I'm talking about Marseille because it's the club I'm following, but you have the sports director is almost every week in the radio, he's almost every week in newspapers because basically he speaks the language, or he speaks French because Kovacevic doesn't speak Greek, I guess. But having a sports director that doesn't do any interviews is a major frustration because he could put some pressure to hide some pressure in phrases toward the coach, but also toward players to ask for players to do better. And I know Kovacevic and Karebe go to ready almost every day, to put pressure into players and stuff. But it's not enough. Sometimes it's just not enough. And you have to go into the press to explain to the fan what's the plan, how did you find that players, what the scouting area liked in Nascimento, in Strefezza, and stuff like that. If we do want to be a better club, we need a better we need better people in general, not only the players. the sports director. I don't know, journalists.
Well, Martial, I know that the depressing talk about transfers can get to us, but why don't we talk about a promotion potentially from within, and we'll leave the circular talk that we always get into when it comes to transfers with Mendilibar, and then let's talk about our MVP for the Super Cup, Alexis Kalougeropoulos, who came in as a substitute. It was 0-0. Biancon came out because of the cramps that he had. Kalougeropoulos comes in at center back, and then he not only draws the penalty, which Taremi ends up scoring, but then he scores the header. He scores the header. He scores the goal from Muzakitis to put us up 2-0. Every time we see Kalougeropoulos play, he's effective. He can use both feet actually pretty well. And he seems to be, the more he plays, he seems to be better also with the ball at his feet. In the beginning, the first couple times I saw him, I remember I wasn't so comfortable when he would get the ball in the back. He would just kind of like kick it out, probably because he was used to that at Volos. But now the more he plays, he's more and more comfortable holding the ball, dishing it out. At this point, and in the news, or I should say in Greek media, there's been discussion that Kalougeropoulos is going to have a bigger role in the second half of the season. But for you, we're not talking about what Mendy will actually do, but for you, is Galougeropoulos now third choice? Is he looking like the third choice striker to you?
It's a difficult answer to give because also a topic I wanted to address is how frustrated I am with Biancon being unable to have back-to-back games when he's due to, because I'm not the biggest fan of Biancon, but on those specific smaller games, he's probably the best profile we do have because he goes forward, he takes action, uh, he takes initiatives, and the fact that he couldn't finish the game for me, also the fact that I think he was out after Keirat, if I'm not mistaken, when we went to Saloniki. I don't remember. I think he played in the Champions League and he was out for the very next league game we're due to play. So I think Karagelopoulos will become, or maybe he's already the third choice because Biancon has that kind of uh, unreliability when it comes to injuries. Uh, the biggest issue with Biancon is that if he was left-footed, it would be perfect. I think we would not have signed Mancha because Kalogeropoulos for me uh, is kind of raw, but he has everything to be a good player. And if not, it will be an easy sale. This guy is
Yeah.
gonna be easily sellable because I don't think he's the best player, the best defender we have when it comes to
No.
pass the ball and stuff. But I can see the guy being targeted by better clubs easily.
Yeah. Galougeropoulos, there was a question here from Lakis Gavalas, ever the optimist. Could you tell me one thing that Galougeropoulos excels in? To me, he seems mediocre in everything. He actually, so for 2 years in a row at Volos, he was one of the best center backs, if not the best, in winning balls in the air. He's been very effective per 90, closing players down on the ground, defensive duel wins. He was behind only Pirola for a while, but of course, the sample size with him is small. So we need to see more to see what he can do. The thing that separates Retsos, a guy like Retsos, for example, or even Biancon, from a player like Kalogeropoulos is that they are better with the ball at their feet. Retsos especially is our best, and a guy like Biancon who's also been effective with the ball at his feet as well. Birola's getting better and better with it, but that's where Kalogeropoulos was. That's where he was kind of lacking, and a lot of that had to do with at Volos he just played hero ball. He would get the ball and just boot it out. So that's 2 years of habits that he has to break. But he looks
Yes,
better. I mean, I'm not going to say he's an amazing ball player and he's going to be our
he's
next Panos
improving.
Retos. Right, but he's improving. So
Uh,
I think from an academy talent that you can't ask for much more than that.
If Biancon was able to play 40 games a season, I think it would have been one of the smartest signing we've made. Because even if I'm not the biggest fan of Biancon, but he does have the characteristics you need when you're the biggest Greek club and you're playing against low blocks. Against low blocks, I think he probably understood quite easily what he had to do, and it's very frustrating that even last season he was injured a lot. Like I mean, a lot. And with Red Sox, he can never be a starter. But I'm thinking about the previous season. If we did had a Biancon back then, I think it could have been not a club legend, blood, but a very a more loved player than that. Uh, but yeah, and I hope he's not getting seriously injured because he has he has that kind of madness we will need against Leverkusen.
Yeah. I think outside of maybe Mancha, I'm pretty comfortable with what we have at the center backs. We'll see how Mancha turns out. He also hasn't played. But right now, for me, like if we're looking at form, players that are playing well anytime they touch the field, Galoyeropoulos is one that has not looked bad anytime that he comes on the pitch. Biancon, we've had our issues. He's had matches where he's come on this season. He hasn't looked great. But Galoyeropoulos has been functional. So he's a player that I think as long as he continues to play well, he has to be rewarded. But I also hope that Mendilibar trusts the depth more going into the second half of the season. And as we begin to close up here, this is like, we talked a lot about worries. I think we should have probably prefaced that we are happy about the result. No one's not happy about silverware. I think I even said that at the beginning of the show. But it's the routines and then the things that we continue to see are what spell danger for us sometimes when it comes to what the club does and when it comes to what Mendilibar is doing. And this is the worry with me. You know, you brought up how you think the cycle is coming to an end, and I think you're right. Like we've had so many of these players we've had here for so long. You know, maybe a couple years in retrospect is not that long, but at Olympiacos, having players here for 2, 3, 4 years is a lot.
Yes.
So
Uh,
the motivation becomes an issue. And, sure, we just got Champions League this year. They won the title for the first time last year, but it's hard to motivate some of these players to keep doing that same thing, winning just the Greek league. They're motivated for Champions League, but not the Greek league. So we are going to have to make changes and we are going to have to play hungry players to keep them in check. We fell into the same issue with Pedro Martins before his eventual demise and departure from the club.
I
So I just hope that these things get fixed.
the I think we have way more ready players to avoid Martin's fate with uh players like Manolas and stuff that weren't football players at that time. And but on another topic, I also wanted to say that um, I think one of the major issues of the season for me is that the team that was prepared for the season, and I've said it already before, wasn't this team. The key factor of the struggles for me is the fact that we signed Podence at the very end of the summer with something that was more of an emergency signing than a need, even if I do value Podence as a player. But what did it? I think it affected the team a lot because what we saw in the preseason wasn't fantastic, but it wasn't it wasn't this team. It just wasn't this team. And I think Mendilibar, to make room for Podence, has to break the team a little bit. And we struggle a lot. And I think we will need to make changes because uh, Pneumonides was one of the most ready player in the summer to enter the season. He barely played. With Kabela and Yazici had a lot of playing time during the summer. They were cut from the Champions League right away when the season started. So Mendilibar decided to enter the season with something way different than it prepared for the whole summer, and it needs time to adjust. But I think it's taking more time than it should, and it also it's I think it indicates that changes are due to be made in the winter, and changes is also learning how to sell a player at the right time because of the fee it can generate, and with that fee you can see other players. Football is just endless cycles.
Yes, I agree with you there. That's why the club, if a club gets 15 million euro offer for Santiago Eze, I think they need to take it because I don't think you're getting more. I saw that they said they wanted 20 million. I don't think you're getting 20 million for Santiago Eze as much as I value the guy. But anyway, Martial, we are hour and 16 minutes in here, getting ready to close up. We ran a poll for you guys, and the poll was asking about your opinions with the Super Cup. We were asking, are you happy with the Super Cup win? There were four options. Yes, because it's silverware. Happy that we won, but we played bad. Third option was just no. And then the fourth option was Mendy was terrible. So 45% seemed they voted that they were happy that we won, but we played bad, which I think seems to be the consensus for most people. Is that it's we just played bad, but everybody was happy we ended up winning the cup. And then 38% were just happy because it's silverware. And then lastly, it was 14% said that Mendilibar was terrible. So I think if we had done this last year, for example, you would say you would get 0% going at Mendy. But anyway, uh, all's well that ends well. We got the cup. Now we're just hoping that we see the improvements that we need to see. We don't want to see Mendilibar dropping points. We're 1 point behind Ike. There's a big opportunity for us here to potentially take back first place. Ike is traveling away to play Aris. They're traveling to Thessaloniki to play Aris, so it is a real opportunity for them to drop points. So we really cannot afford to mess up Atromitos. We need to pick up the momentum that we got from Ofi and bring that into the Atromitos game next week so that we can take back first place. And then, of course, guys, don't forget this month we have Champions League coming up as well. A lot of great stuff to look forward to. Again, we've got a fun interview that's planned for you this week, so look for that. That should be coming up. And I guess otherwise, Martial, anything else before we close up?
No, I'm just waiting to see what January is going to deliver. Because when it's quiet like that in transfers with this club, it means that we're going to sign 7 players. When it's
Uh,
quiet like that, it's because uh, something is being cooked, but we don't know if it's cooked good or shit. We'll see.
We'll see. And Georgie Atru reminding me that Ike also has Pau the following weekend. So they play against Panathinaikos the weekend after they play against Aris. So really big potential for them to drop some points here and for us to retake our spot at the top of the table. So Mendilibar really needs to make sure he gets these games right. I think we have, so I said that we have Atromitos coming up, and then I think it's Asteras, I want to say. I have to pull the schedule up, but I think we have Asteras after Atromitos. So that's 2 games right there that you have to win. Those are must wins. If we drop points again, man, oh my God, it's going to be, people are going to be coming out for blood. They're going to be pissed with Mendilibar. Anyway, thank you everybody for tuning in. It was a fun hour and 20 minutes. Happy New Year again to all of you. We wish you the best. We wish the best for our club. We wish nothing but success for everyone. Basketball, handball, women's football, you name it. We wish them the best. We need to add more titles to this never-ending trophy cabinet. So take care, everybody. Have a happy New Year. Have a great rest of your weekend. The regular work weeks are starting back up this week. So we will see you guys all next time for when we do, I guess, when we do our match review for Atromitos, unless anything else comes up. But look out for this interview that's coming out. We should be getting that out this week. And any other content that comes out, I believe we have another Martial Monday for Patreon tomorrow, right, Martial?
That's right.
New Year's edition, baby. I love it. I absolutely love it. Take care, everyone. Have a great rest of your Sunday. I'm Adi. This is Martial. We are Arthuros International. By the fans, for the fans.
Yeah!